What if I told you that right now, in 2026, there are cities across Ohio where home prices are quietly crashing, sellers are slashing asking prices, and buyers who have been sitting on the sidelines for years are finally getting the upper hand? And what if I told you that most people living in these cities have absolutely no idea it's happening? Look, Ohio has been called one of the hottest real estate states in the country. Columbus is on the national radar. Toledo was ranked the number 4 housing market in the entire nation by Realtor.com. And yes, the statewide median home price recently hit $255,000, up over 14% from last year. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. Statewide numbers hide the truth. Because while some cities are booming, others are in serious trouble. We're talking price drops, plunging sales volumes, neighborhoods where homes sit on the market for months with no takers, and sellers who have been forced to cut their prices just to get anyone, to make an offer. And if you are over 40, if you own a home in Ohio, if you're thinking about buying, selling, or retiring here, this video is going to give you information that could save you or make you tens of thousands of dollars. So stay with me. I've done the research. I've pulled the latest data from Redfin, Zillow, and the Ohio Housing Needs Assessment for 2026. And I'm going to walk you through 10 Ohio cities where home prices are crashing right now. Let's get into it. Before we continue, if you want more real data-driven videos about the American real estate market, housing trends, and how to protect your wealth, hit that subscribe button right now. We publish new content every week and this community is growing fast. Don't miss out. Number 1. Youngstown, Ohio. Let's start with a city that many Ohio residents already associate with economic hardship. But the housing numbers in 2026 tell a story that's even more alarming than most people realize. Youngstown, Ohio. Once a powerhouse of American steel manufacturing. Today, it holds the painful distinction of being one of the most financially distressed housing markets in the entire state, and possibly the entire country. According to the latest data from Zillow, the average home value in Youngstown has dropped 2.2% over the past year, sitting at just $51,115. Let that number sink in. The average home in this city is worth roughly $52,000. For comparison, the national average is over $360,000. That means homes in Youngstown are priced at nearly 86% below the national average. Now, Redfin's data paints a slightly different picture depending on which segment of the market you look at. Their March 2026 data shows the median sale price around $93,000, down 0.54% year over year. And the price per square foot? Down nearly 20% since last year. That is not a small number. That is a serious decline in per square foot value that signals buyers are simply not willing to pay what they were willing to pay 12 months ago. The demand side of the equation is equally troubling. Nearly half of Youngstown homebuyers, 49%, are actively searching to leave the city entirely. They're not looking in different neighborhoods. They're looking at Louisville, Lexington, and Cape Coral, Florida. They want out. And when nearly half your potential buyer pool is shopping for the exit, what does that do to prices? It drags them down every single month. The root cause here is structural and decades in the making. Population loss, a collapsed industrial economy, high poverty rates, and a housing stock that is aging badly. The city has been shrinking since the 1970s. And in 2026, the housing market is reflecting that reality in cold, hard numbers. For homeowners in Youngstown who are 40 or older and thinking about retirement, the uncomfortable truth is this: your home may not be building the equity you're counting on. If you're planning to sell in the next 5 to 10 years, time is not your friend here. The data says prices are going down, not up. Number 2. Dayton, Ohio. Dayton is a city of two very different stories, and which story applies to you depends entirely on which part of the metro you live in. The suburbs around Dayton, Kettering, Centerville, Huber Heights, are actually holding up reasonably well. Kettering median prices are around $239,000. Centerville is pushing $326,000 to $460,000 in some zip codes. Those markets are tight, with homes selling at or above asking price. But the city of Dayton proper? That is a different situation entirely. The median sale price in the city core sits at approximately $114,000, and according to Redfin data from early 2026, it was down 3.4% compared to the previous year. In December 2024, the city saw a catastrophic 69.3% drop in homes sold compared to the same period the year before. Even if you adjust for seasonal factors, that is a staggering collapse in transaction volume. West Dayton tells the bleakest part of the story. In February 2026, West Dayton home prices were down 4.1% year-over-year, with a median sale price of just $82,000. The price per square foot in that submarket dropped 12.7%. Homes are sitting on the market for 48 to 63 days on average, significantly longer than a healthy, competitive market would show. What's driving this? Several things. A 26.9% poverty rate in the city, a median household income of only $45,247, a housing stock where the median build year is 1951, meaning most of the homes are old, require renovation, and appeal only to investors and buyers who are comfortable with major projects. And critically, 60% of current Dayton home buyers are actively searching to move out of the city. When the majority of your local buyers are leaving town, you don't have a housing market, you have a slow-motion exit. If you own a home in the Dayton city core and you're thinking about your financial future, the data in 2026 is not encouraging. The suburbs may save you, but the city itself is under real pressure. Number 3, Youngstown surrounding Mahoning Valley communities. We talked about Youngstown specifically, but the entire Mahoning Valley region, which includes communities like Warren, Niles, Campbell, and Struthers, is experiencing what economists are calling a prolonged housing market correction. This region has faced decades of economic challenges tied to the collapse of the American steel industry. And while there are some early signs of stabilization in parts of the area, mainly driven by potential automotive investments and some light manufacturing revival, the residential real estate market remains deeply troubled. Population loss is the single biggest factor. When fewer people live somewhere, fewer people need homes. And when fewer people need homes, sellers have to compete harder, cut prices more aggressively, and accept lower offers just to complete a sale. That is the reality on the ground in the Mahoning Valley right now. Home prices in this corridor are among the lowest in the entire state. Entry-level properties can be purchased for $40,000 to $80,000, numbers that sound almost unbelievable in a national context where the median home costs over $360,000. But low prices do not automatically mean opportunity. In a declining population market, a cheap home can become even cheaper. And for homeowners who are 40 or 50 years old and counting on home equity to fund their retirement, a market where prices are flat or falling is a serious financial threat. The silver lining, and there is one, is that industrial investment, if it materializes at scale, could change the trajectory of this region. Companies tied to automotive and manufacturing have been eyeing Northeast Ohio. But promises and projections are not the same as closed sales and rising prices. Until the economic fundamentals change, the Mahoning Valley housing market will continue to struggle. Number 4, Portsmouth, Ohio. Portsmouth is a small city in southern Ohio that many people outside the state have never heard of. But for the people who live there, the housing market in 2026 is a real and painful story. Analysts tracking Ohio's regional markets have specifically flagged Greater Portsmouth as one of the areas experiencing both decreases in home sales volume and, in some cases, actual drops in average sale prices. That puts Portsmouth in a select and troubling category, markets where both demand and price are declining simultaneously. The economic backdrop here is severe. Scioto County has some of the highest poverty and opioid addiction rates in the state of Ohio, a legacy of the prescription drug crisis that devastated southern Ohio communities in the 2000s and 2010s. Population has been declining, the local job market is thin, Young people leave for Columbus, Cincinnati, or out of state entirely, taking their home buying power with them. What that leaves behind is a buyer pool that is primarily older, lower income, and in many cases, not eligible for traditional mortgage financing. Cash transactions and investor purchases make up a disproportionate share of activity, and investor buyers are not sentimental. They buy at a discount and expect a return. That puts constant downward pressure on prices. For homeowners in Portsmouth who bought their homes years ago thinking they were building equity, the 2026 market is a difficult reckoning. Appreciation is not happening in this market. If anything, the trajectory is sideways at best, downward at worst. If you're thinking about selling, the sooner may well be the better. Number 5. Ashland, Ohio. Ashland, Ohio is a mid-sized city in north-central Ohio, home to Ashland University, a modest manufacturing base, and a housing market that analysts have flagged for meaningful softening. Real estate data tracking Ohio's regional markets specifically calls out Ashland as one of the cities that experienced decreases in the number of homes sold alongside declining average sale prices. That dual decline, fewer transactions and lower prices, is the textbook definition of a softening market, and it's exactly what's happening here. Ashland is not in freefall, it's not Youngstown, but it's a market where the momentum has clearly shifted toward buyers. Sellers who were able to set aggressive prices just 2 or 3 years ago are now having to make concessions. Days on market have stretched. Price cuts are becoming more common. Part of the problem is geographic. Ashland sits between larger, stronger markets. Columbus, Cleveland, and Akron all draw buyers away from mid-tier cities like Ashland when people have the ability to choose. Remote work flexibility has actually helped some smaller Ohio cities, but Ashland hasn't captured that trend the way some others have. For homeowners in Ashland who are over 40, the practical takeaway is this: don't assume your home's value is going to grow significantly in the near term. If you have been waiting for a peak to sell, that peak may have already passed. And if you're buying in Ashland right now, the balance of power is tilting your way. But do your homework carefully before you commit, because the fundamentals driving the softness aren't going away quickly. Number 6. Mansfield, Ohio. Mansfield sits in north-central Ohio, roughly midway between Columbus and Cleveland in Richland County. On the surface, it might seem like a city that benefits from that central location. But the housing data tells a more complicated story. Mansfield has been described as a market with stability. But stability in this context is not the same as growth. While some nearby markets are posting strong year-over-year price gains, Mansfield is described as posting only modest gains in average sale price alongside fluctuating sales volumes. In a market where inflation has been running hot and construction costs have risen, modest price gains often mean homeowners are actually losing ground in real terms. The city has a notable blue-collar heritage. Manufacturing, distribution, and healthcare have historically been its economic pillars. But like many mid-sized Ohio cities, it has struggled with population retention. Younger residents tend to migrate toward Columbus or Cleveland for employment opportunities, leaving a buyer pool that skews older and more cautious. What this means practically is that Mansfield's housing market has low velocity. Homes don't fly off the market. Buyers have time to negotiate. Sellers who price aggressively tend to sit without offers for weeks or months until they come down. That is not a crash in the dramatic sense, but for a homeowner who expected 10 or 15% annual appreciation, it's a quiet disappointment that compounds over time. Number 7. Zanesville, Ohio. Zanesville, in Muskingum County in eastern Ohio, is another market where the data points to struggle rather than strength. Eastern Ohio as a whole has been left behind by the economic revitalization stories that have played out in Columbus, Cincinnati, and even Toledo. The region has a legacy economy tied to manufacturing and natural resources, and that economy has been in long-term decline for decades. In Zanesville specifically, home prices remain extremely low by any national standard, and the trajectory in 2026 is flat to declining in many neighborhoods. Investor activity is present. The low price points attract cash buyers looking for rentals. But investor purchases do not build community wealth the way owner-occupied homeownership does. For residents who have lived in Zanesville for years, there is a quiet financial crisis playing out. Homes that should be building equity toward a comfortable retirement are instead stagnating or declining in value. The local economy does not generate the kind of job growth that drives housing demand. And without demand, there is no price appreciation. The honest assessment for homeowners in Zanesville who are 40, 50, or older: your home equity strategy needs a second look. Depending on a Zanesville property to fund your retirement could be risky. Diversifying your financial picture with other savings vehicles, retirement accounts, or real estate in stronger markets is worth serious consideration. Number 8. Lima, Ohio. Lima, in Allen County in northwest Ohio, is a city with a storied industrial history. It was once a major center for oil refining and manufacturing. But like much of Ohio's industrial heartland, Lima has faced significant economic headwinds in recent decades. The housing market in Lima reflects these long-term structural challenges. Prices are among the lowest in the state. Median home values hover in the $80,000 to $110,000 range, and appreciation has been minimal. Population loss has been a persistent problem. Allen County's population has declined significantly since its industrial peak, and that contraction puts sustained downward pressure on home prices. What makes Lima's situation particularly relevant for the 40-plus audience watching this video is the retirement planning angle. Many longtime Lima residents own their homes outright or have significant equity built up through years of mortgage payments. But if the market continues to stagnate or decline, that equity is not growing. It may actually be eroding in inflation-adjusted terms. The Lima market is not making national headlines, which is almost part of the problem. It's a quiet, overlooked decline rather than a dramatic crash. But for the families whose financial security is tied to their Lima home, the data in 2026 is a wake-up call worth heeding. Number 9. Steubenville, Ohio. Steubenville sits in Jefferson County in the extreme eastern corner of Ohio, right on the West Virginia border. It's part of the broader Ohio Valley Rust Belt region, an area that has been fighting economic decline for longer than most Ohio markets. The housing market here is, in many ways, the canary in the coal mine for what happens when population decline and economic stagnation intersect over a long period of time. Home prices in Steubenville are extraordinarily low. Properties that would cost $300,000 to $400,000 elsewhere can be found here for $60,000 to $100,000. And in 2026, those prices continue to face downward pressure. The demand side is deeply challenged. Ohio's overall home sales declined 24% from 2019 to 2024, the fewest purchases since 2014, and that trend hits hardest in markets like Steubenville, where the buyer pool is thin to begin with. High mortgage rates, which averaged 6.7% through 2024, have been a particular burden for lower-income communities where buyers are already stretching to qualify. For homeowners in Steubenville, the market in 2026 offers few reasons for optimism. The structural problems, population loss, limited job creation, proximity to economically struggling neighboring states, are not going away on a short timeline. If you have options, it's worth evaluating them seriously. Number 10. Canton, Massillon area. And our final city brings us to the Canton-Massillon corridor in Stark County. And I want to be precise here, because this is a nuanced one. The broader Canton market is expected to see modest growth of around 2 to 3% in home prices through 2026, supported by healthcare and manufacturing employment. That's not a crash. But within the city of Canton proper, particularly in older lower-income neighborhoods, there are pockets of real softening that are worth flagging for homeowners and buyers. The city of Canton has a significant share of aging housing stock, elevated poverty rates in certain neighborhoods, and the same population retention challenges that plague many mid-sized Ohio cities. While the suburban ring around Canton is performing reasonably well, The urban core is a different story. Homes in weaker Canton neighborhoods are sitting longer. Price reductions are increasingly common. The percentage of homes selling with price cuts has risen meaningfully, and for homeowners who live in those neighborhoods, many of them older, many of them counting on their homes as a financial backstop, the market in 2026 is not delivering the results they need. The broader Ohio data reinforces this point. Statewide, the share of homes with price reductions has jumped from 45% to 55.5% in recent data. That means more than half of Ohio home sellers had to cut their asking price. In weaker urban cores like parts of Canton, that number is almost certainly higher. If you found this information valuable, and I truly hope you have, please take a second right now and hit that subscribe button. We work hard to bring you real, honest, data-backed content about the American real estate market. Every subscriber helps us keep this channel growing. Hit subscribe. It's free, and it might be one of the most valuable things you do for your financial knowledge this year. The bigger picture. What's really happening in Ohio? Before we wrap up, I want to give you the full context, because context matters. Ohio as a whole is not crashing. The statewide median home price is $255,000, up 14.35% year over year. Columbus is a national housing hotspot for 2026. Toledo ranked number 4 in the country on Realtor.com's list. The Midwest is outperforming coastal markets in many metrics. But, and this is critical, Ohio's housing market in 2026 is deeply two-tiered. There is a growing Ohio that is attracting investment, jobs, and new residents. Columbus, Toledo, parts of Cincinnati, the Columbus suburbs, and emerging technology corridors. These markets are strong. And then there is a shrinking Ohio. The Rust Belt remnants, the rural counties, the small cities that lost their industrial anchor decades ago and never fully replaced it. In these markets, the trends we've discussed today, price declines, falling sales volumes, rising price cuts, population exodus, are very real. The Ohio Housing Needs Assessment for 2026 puts it bluntly. Home sales statewide dropped 24% from 2019 to 2024, the lowest level since 2014. Ohio's median home price is now 2.6 times the median household income, the worst affordability ratio since 2005. Over 55% of Ohio home sellers are having to cut their prices. These are not signs of a healthy, balanced market across the board. For anyone over 40 who owns a home in Ohio or is thinking about buying or selling, the most important thing you can do right now is stop relying on statewide numbers and start looking at your specific city, your specific neighborhood, and your specific price tier. Because in Ohio in 2026, where you are matters more than ever. All right, folks, that is our complete breakdown of the 10 Ohio cities where home prices are under the most pressure in 2026. Now, I want to hear from you. If you live in any of these cities, or anywhere in Ohio, drop a comment below and tell me what you're seeing on the ground. Are prices actually dropping in your neighborhood? Are homes sitting longer than they used to? Are sellers getting desperate? Your real-world experience adds enormous value to this conversation, and I read every single comment. If this video helped you, if it gave you information you didn't have before, please share it. Share it with a friend, a family member, a neighbor who owns a home in Ohio. This is the kind of content that can genuinely help people make better financial decisions, and sharing it costs you nothing. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. We cover real estate trends, housing markets, and financial insights for everyday Americans, and we're just getting started. Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, and protect what you've worked so hard to build.